All right, what's going on, everybody? As everyone heard, probably over the last couple of days, Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez is not officially signed yet, but it looks like it is close, according to people out there reporting on Twitter and on the various boxing communities and websites. Turkey Al Sheikh was being interviewed by Talk Sport, and he pretty much indicated that that fight was close. It's not done, but it's close. So let's just speak hypothetically. Fight's done, right? It's supposedly being reportedly scheduled for September, right? So Crawford last fought last August of last year. So if that fight does happen in September, he will basically be off about 13 months. About 13 months. So again, Crawford, as of late, has not been very active in the latter part of his career. We know, leading up to that Spence fight, before that, he was off for well over a year. And again, just fought Madrimov last August. Once again, another long layoff. So the guy's essentially been fighting once a year. He's been having average year layoffs these last couple of years. He's going to be 38 in September. So when the fight comes off, he'll be 38 years old. And it seems like this is the only fight that he wants, right? Doesn't want unifications anymore. Not looking for multiple title fights in different divisions, right? Hasn't talked about going up to 160. He just wants this one fight. It seems like. It seems like this is the only fight left that matters, right? Canelo says he'll take the fight. Not as enthusiastic about the fight as Terence Crawford is. There's other fights out there for Canelo. Canelo, as people love to say, I guess essentially because of his position in the sport, to some degree, can fight just about anybody he wants. Does Crawford have that same luxury? Probably not. But at the end of the day, Crawford still can be in a lot of great fights, but for whatever reason, this just seems to be the only one that he wants right now. Because there's a lot of very intriguing fights down there at 154. There's some pretty intriguing fights at 160, right? There's some intriguing fights at 160. So, you know, we have to ask ourselves, what's the light at the end of the tunnel? What is the pot at the end of the rainbow for Terence Crawford if the only fight he's really talking about is this Canelo fight? Now, obviously, we know if he takes the fight, and any fight that Crawford takes, he's going to be well prepared. He's going to be, you know, totally focused on wanting to win the fight. I mean, obviously, Crawford is a competitive guy. We know that, and I don't think that's ever going to change with Terence Crawford. But you have to ask yourself, this is definitely towards the tail end of his career. We know that, right? We know that. 38 years old after this one doesn't really get any bigger or better than this one if it does happen with Canelo. So is there anything out there that would get his juices flowing? So with all that being said, obviously if this is going to be his last fight, then it's going to be typically the cash out fight, right? You want to get the most amount of money you can because you know this is the end of the road. Now, how that affects psychologically or even subconsciously his approach to this fight, obviously he knows Canelo is a huge, huge threat. There's no doubt about that. But one thing that I hear a lot of people saying, right, and a lot of people are breaking down this fight, and the one thing they point to in Crawford's favor is he's a lot more highly skilled than Canelo. We already know Canelo's a skilled fighter, but when they look at Crawford in terms of just skills, they look at him as just several notches above Canelo. It seems like that. That's the people who are in support of Crawford, who think Crawford's going to win this fight, like Tim Bradley. The one thing they really point to is they imply that there's a gigantic skill gap. And a lot of times when we look at empirical data over history, when the smaller man has moved up, and a lot of these big marquee fights, we can go down the list. I've done it several times. Leonard Hagler, Pacquiao moved up against De La Hoya, moved up against Cotto, moved up against Margarito. Duran moved up against Sugar Ray Leonard. Was smaller man against Iran Barkley. Sugar Ray Leonard moved up to fight Donnie Lalonde. The list goes on and on. And a lot of these, Andre Ward was typically was a smaller man against Chad Dawson, supposedly. I mean, obviously Chad Dawson had to come down. But we look at these big money fights, these mega fights, where the smaller man will move up, and usually the smaller man in these matchups will win and has won because there is a large skill gap, right? Or there's a bigger skill gap than normal for these guys, for the bigger guys that they're taking on. So obviously, Sugar Ray Leonard was much more skilled than Donald Lalonde. I could argue Pacquiao is more talented than Miguel Cotto, and the list goes on and on. So the one determining factor that people are pointing to here is they're just saying that there's just a huge skill gap between Crawford and Canelo. And I'm going to kind of push back against that a little bit. I do think Crawford is an incredibly talented fighter. I think Canelo's a talented fighter. But the thing is the skill gap that wide as people are suggesting here? Because I don't think it's as wide as people are suggesting. Now, you can argue Crawford's definitely more versatile, right? But Crawford, again, going to be 38 if this fight happens in September. Canelo will be 34. Canelo does have a lot of miles on the clock and turned pro at a young age. So they both have some wear and tear on them without question. They're both, I would not say, are in their physical prime. With that being said, they're still incredibly talented fighters. But if you look at Crawford as of late, he's been fighting differently lately. He hasn't, like last time I talked to Eric Laura about this yesterday on the show, and I said, the last time he really fought a fight on the perimeter, really moving on the outside, kind of sticking and moving, a fight where he was very, very tactical, used a lot of space, distance, and movement, as I said. The last time he did that was against Victor Polstel. In a lot of his recent fights, he's been holding his feet, not a ton of movement, hasn't really been overly defensive. Not, obviously, he's still a solid fighter, right? I'm not saying he throws all caution into the wind, but he has shown to have a desire to stand in the pocket more and longer. And he hasn't been as elusive in recent years as he has been in some of his earlier fights, particularly at the lighter weight classes, right? So this notion that Crawford can just be like the Matrix in there and Canelo's not going to be able to lay a glove on him and Canelo's not going to be able to touch him and Crawford's not going to get hit much and that Crawford has such a significant speed advantage that he's not going to be able to Canelo's not going to be able to touch him. I don't know, man. I just don't see it like that. Crawford's been holding his feet, less movement, more willingness to engage, more willingness to be more offensive minded. We saw the Madrimov fight. And again, I said that fight was going to be a competitive fight. Madrimov is a very solid fighter, without question. But that fight was a tough fight. That was a fight where, Madrimov was getting his stuff off. He was having some success in there, right? Is Madrimov a better fighter than Canelo? I know we can't always do the combat math, but can't always do the combat math. But you know, sometimes it works. Sometimes it works because you have to ask yourself: is there anything that Madrimov can do that Canelo can't? Now you can argue Madrimov's probably a little quicker with his feet, but Canelo's got deceptively fast hands, and Canelo's an exceptional counterpuncher. He's a really precise, precision type puncher. I don't know. I think again, I don't want to be diminishing or dismissive to Crawford at all. I think people are kind of overestimating the skill gap between the two of these fighters. I think they're thinking it's much wider than it really is. And just because someone is more versatile doesn't necessarily mean they're all overall more skilled. And if the version of Crawford that we've seen over the years shows up against Canelo, like, are we going to see that Crawford we saw against Postal? Like I said, it was more of a mover, a stick and mover in that fight. We haven't seen that stick and mover for a long, long, long time, and I don't know if that's because of age, because of that's just when you get older, you can't move as much. We saw that with Andre Ward, Bernard Hopkins later in their career. They held their feet more and fought in the pocket more. Hamid, I'd love to hear your position on this. Am I wrong about anything? And how do you see this fight? Is the skill gap as wide as people are suggesting between Crawford and Canelo, in your opinion?
Yeah, Beeb, can you first of all, can you hear me? Because I've never used this.
You sound perfect.
All
You
right.
sound
That's
perfect.
all right. Because this is not StreamYard, did it?
No,
I just spoke to Ness because you know I was talking about this to one of my friends on Twitter, and I seen Steve Kim. I think talking about it with Mario Lopez. I didn't manage to catch. I think it was maybe the last episode they did on the Three Doctor Rule, but I agree with him. Like I thought last year or the year before, because I spoke to you about this before the Fury Usyk fight. I thought it was more of a mismatch, but as time has gone and how Canelo's looked, and the fact that Crawford has had a fight at 54, even though like I think there's mixed reception with that fight. I think this is a bit more of a competitive fight. The big question will be, can Crawford do it for 12 rounds? I agree with you because I think the skill gap is big. I think the size difference is the big question. But
so
if
not
Crawford
to
does
cut you
fight
off.
off,
Not to cut you off. I apologize for
go on,
interrupting.
go on.
So you agree that the skill gap is very wide, in your opinion?
Yeah, Crawford's a better pound for pound. Crawford's a better overall boxer. Like
Okay.
I think Canelo had trouble with guys like Lara and who was the other one? Jacobs at times maybe, but I don't think
Austin
Jacob
Trout.
Trout. Yeah, that was the one. Yes,
So, do you,
Austin
so,
Trout.
so you think Crawford is going to fight a similar fight to Lara?
I think Crawford. I retweeted it. Someone was saying I think Crawford should do what he did with Postal. I don't know if he could get Canelo's respect. So if he's gonna be more aggressive, I think that might play into Canelo's hands. I would like try and box like he did with Postal and just hope you don't get dragged into a fight because with Madrimov at times I thought he did get dragged in, but I honestly think Madrimov is a better fighter than a lot of people are saying because I saw Madrimov's like early on his fights against Eric Walker and a couple of other guys, and he had a lot of amateur fights where people I don't think saw him like fight until I think his fight with Crawford and the fight before that when he
Yeah.
become a champion. But he's a completely different fighter. Canelo's feet are, I think, much slower. Madrimov has got the pendulum step. He's a classic.
What about the hand
So
speed? What about the
I,
hand speed, though?
I think he's faster as well. I think the
That's with the
only
hands too.
I think the difference would be Canelo's upper body movement and the way
Yeah.
he slips and slides is a bit more effective and a bit more, I'd say, better. But with Madrimov, I think defensively that's the problem. I would say he's not as good as Canelo because he's kind of a bit like stationary at times and a bit robotic. He doesn't really move his head. He's very similar to Triple G in a way, but also a bit different. Like I think he's a bit more light on his feet. I think Crawford fighting Demchenko is probably a smart decision. I know a lot of people are giving him criticism. I think he should be looking at guys who are similar size or got similar dimensions to Canelo because he needs to at least, I thought, have a one more fight, which he is. And the only thing I would be a bit worried about if I was in his camp is the weight. I don't think he needs to come in that heavy. Like, what do you think about the weight? Because I think he could try and come in like low 160s and try and beat Canelo like that. Don't
Yeah. I don't.
overdo the weight.
I don't anticipating him coming in right up to the 168-pound limit.
Yeah,
I I would argue. I would argue that he'll probably come in closer to probably like 162, 163 ish. To be
yeah.
honest with you. So. Yeah,
That's
he's
the
just
right thing to do. Yeah, keep your speed, and
yeah.
don't come in too heavy where you're like lethargic or your weight is gonna be affecting you, because he needs to keep his speed. And the people forget about the Khan fight. I know Khan got ironed out, but for 5 rounds, Canelo seemed a bit lost. I know. Look, it doesn't matter because it's a
I
twelve
said the
round
same
fight.
thing. I said the same thing. I thought I had, believe it or not, I get slaughtered for saying this. Before Khan got stopped, I had him up on the cards.
No, I had Khan winning every round apart from one round. I think I gave Canelo 1 round basically, and then Canelo was coming on strong. I was watching it live because I don't think I've rewatched the full fight, but I remember Canelo was slowing him down with those body shots. But Khan is not in the same league as guys like Mayweather, Lara, or obviously Crawford. So if Crawford could do that for 12 rounds, I think he could win it. The thing is, the next fight I think should tell us more, because sometimes I think when you go up too much in weight, it can be a big factor. I know a lot of people are saying his ceiling would be 154. I think I would probably revisit that because I was saying the same. I thought his ceiling would be middleweight, but if he's just gonna have one fight against Canelo, who's, let's be true, not really a big super middleweight, he's, I think, capable of pulling it off.
Now,
I just think about the judging in this fight. Do you reckon if this is a close fight, Crawford could get it? Because I don't know, with Canelo, he always has some funny scorecards. That would be the worry. I think.
well, here's the problem. Because when you look at these types of fights, if Crawford is going to be, as you say, the mover, and Canelo is going to be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stalker, because Crawford, here's the thing: Crawford does start out slow, and so does
Mm.
Canelo. So if you're going to have nip and tuck rounds early, who gets those nip and tuck rounds? The guy who's moving forward or the guy who's moving back? And a lot of times in those nip and tuck rounds, when there's not much to go off of, we tend to go with the guy who's moving forward, right? Quote unquote, the effective aggressor, the ring general. So if Crawford does start out slow in this fight, and there are nip and tuck rounds where you're saying to yourself, who got it? Canelo could get those rounds. And I'll point to the fight with Bivol. Because if you looked at those first 4 rounds in the Bivol fight with Canelo, right? I know everyone's up in arms when they see the 115 and 113 scorecard, right? I had it 9 rounds to 3 for Bivol. But let me just explain this to you, and you tell me what your thoughts are on this.
I actually had a 115, 113 for Bivol. Really,
Okay,
I just
but can
I
I
might be in the
let me just
minority.
before you
Yeah, go on, go on.
elaborate on that, I'm going to go right back to you. Don't worry. Let me just say this. When you look at those first 4 rounds, they were very quiet, uneventful rounds. And when you ask people, okay, how did you score the first 4 rounds? Some people say, oh, I gave 1 and 3 to Canelo. Some people will say, oh, I gave 2 and 4 to Canelo. Oh, I gave 1 and 4 to Canelo. Everyone has those rounds differently. So it's not impossible that you do give Canelo the first 4 and you give him round 9 and you come up with 7-5. So apply that logic to Crawford. And if there are the first 4 or 5 rounds are quiet like that, and as the judges did in that fight, give them to Canelo, right? Then you could have a close fight. And in a close fight, unless Crawford does something dynamic, Canelo probably will get the decision in a close fight, right? Because you'll have the impression of the bigger guy, even if he's not imposing his will, trying to impose his will, and maybe the smaller guy trying to work his way into the fight, trying to set some traps, whatever. But if the traps don't work, and even the guy moving forward is not really killing it, not setting the world on fire, what ends up happening is he's going to win the rounds by default, similar to how the judges, in my opinion, scored the first 4 rounds in the Bivol fight. So you make a great point. So
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how you did that with the first with the first 4 rounds of that Bivol fight. How you scored that Bivol fight close too. That's that's
yeah.
that's that's interesting. But go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off, but go ahead and say what you were saying before.
No, I think your overall scorecard was more accurate. I've seen some people say you may have even been 10-2. I don't know. I think that
Well,
may
the
be a
three
bit
judges
wide.
agreed with you. The three judges agreed with you. And Steve Weisfeld is a I
Mm.
would argue is the best judge in boxing. I was actually trained by Steve Weisfeld,
Yeah,
so
I
I hold
had
him
it
in high
that
regard.
I had it that scorecard, but I thought if I was, being honest, there was a round which I gave to Canelo because I thought they're gonna give him every round. I thought they're gonna give him the benefit, so that's why I was kind of trying to judge it how the judges were
Yeah,
gonna
see, I don't
score it.
like
I
Ring. Shout out to my man Ring IQ because he says the same thing. He'll be like, "Well, I scored the fight the way I thought that." Nah, man, I'm not trying to give you any stick here, but I don't know. It's a pet
I
peeve of
know
mine, man.
I
Just
agree.
score the fight the way you see it,
I
man. Don't worry about
I
how the
agree.
judges see it.
I agree, but with Canelo, I after a while after the Golovkin first fight, and there was only one round though, but I thought it was about 8-4 to Bivol. If I'm being honest,
I
I
had it
couldn't.
9-3. I had it nine
Yeah,
three.
yeah. I scored a 7-5, but I can't make the same case for Canelo winning like 7 or 8 rounds. That's basically. But
Let's
I just don't think. I just don't think Crawford could do that for 12 rounds. Like with Bivol, the thing was, after I think round, like you said, round 4 or 5, he put his foot on the gas because of, how good he was and the size. And then he just, took out the judge's hands, basically.
yeah.
So Crawford's going to have to do the same thing.
Let's let MJ get in here real quick. Let me give you a quick synopsis of what my opinion here. The people who are picking Crawford here obviously are picking him because they think there's a giant skill gap here. Now, while there may be a skill gap, you could argue, or maybe you can argue Crawford's probably more versatile. I don't think the skill gap is as wide as everyone's saying. Like people are saying, like this is a gigantic skill gap. And that's why they're picking him to win, regardless of the size. They think the skill gap is so great that Canelo size won't really matter. What are your thoughts on that, MJ?
Well, Phil, this is blood boxing, by the
Oh,
way.
is it blood? Oh, I'm sorry, brother. How you doing, man?
Yeah, no problem, man. I've never used this platform before. I thought it was StreamYard, but I don't think that the skill gap is as wide as people think it is. The thing about it is that Crawford and Canelo, they took different paths. Both of them, they've had that taste of undisputed. They've had that success that fight fans love to see fighters have, especially if you want to argue on their legacy and things like that. But the skill gap, I don't think it's that wide, really. Crawford, the last fight that he fought that went the distance was with Postal. That's in 2016. That's 9 years ago, man, right?
Yeah,
Um, so the question is, does he still have the legs to do something like he did in 2016 against Postal when he was younger, only like what, 30, around 30 years old,
yeah.
29, late 20s or something like that. People change as they get older, and one of the first things these boxers lose is their magnificent footwork. And we've seen that people could beat Canelo utilizing footwork. We've seen it with Bivol before. We saw it with Floyd Mayweather. We saw other guys give Canelo problems, such as Laura and Trout, utilizing footwork. So I think that Crawford is going to have some of that. He's going to have to pull everything he's got out in that fight, man. Another thing too, the speed. A lot of people get speed and timing mixed up too. That's another thing. I think they're pretty similar in speed and timing. I think they're both very similar in that area. Both of them throw their punches straight when they want to throw their punches straight. Um, Canelo could even, he doesn't have the best footwork around, and a lot of people always talk about his upper body movement rather than him fighting off of his back foot and things like that. But Canelo is a very skilled fighter. He's very good at catching the punches and countering. He could do the pull counters, the check hooks, all those kind of stuff. So he will make people pay for their mistakes, and that's why
And
he had
blood. Even when
success.
you hit him, even when you do hit him, it's hard to hit him flush too.
Yeah, it's he's not an easy guy to when he's really focused on utilizing that upper body movement and catching punches and countering and things like that. He's very good at that, man. I think Bivol's big advantage was his size, man, being able to fight off that jab and have some kind of a separation between him and Canelo. Crawford is not going to have that luxury in the same manner that Bivol had that luxury. Crawford is, from what I believe, has a little bit of a longer reach
Yeah, he's got
than
longer
Canelo
arms. Yeah,
Alvarez.
he's got longer
What's that?
arms. He's got longer arms. You're correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a longer reach. They're around the same height, but it's still not significant. And I'm not really sure if he could keep Canelo off of him because Canelo's naturally a bigger guy. I'm a little bit worried about Crawford having the power to really keep a big, strong Canelo off of him because I've ever hardly even seen Canelo Alvarez hurt throughout his career, and he's fought guys like Triple G who punch very hard. These are hard punches. Kovalev, he's fought big old guys and stuff like that. I don't know if Terence Crawford. I don't believe he has the power to keep Canelo off of him.
Me
I'm not
neither.
sure he has the
Me neither.
footwork still
Yeah.
to deal with because Postal was 2016, bro. We're older. Me and you, B, we're both up in age. We know that means a whole lot. You know
I'm
what I'm saying?
55, man. I'm
Yeah,
55.
I'm right
And,
behind you, man. I'm right
and
behind you.
every time I get up, every time I get out of bed, I feel like I'm opening up a box of Rice Krispies with all that snap, crackle, and popping. You know that.
Yeah, man. I'm right there at 51, man. So I know how that feels. But man, it's just going to be an interesting fight because you kind of wonder what does Terence Crawford have left to get away from a monster like Canelo Alvarez because he had knocked out everybody until his last fight. But before that, Postal was the last person to go the distance with him, which
And
was 9 years ago, bro.
but
So
blood,
it's really hard to tell, man.
blood. I love that you bring that fight up because that's the fight that I always go back to was the last time I actually seen Crawford really fight in that type of manner where he used the ring, where he used the movement. Because after that,
Right.
he just started fighting differently. And you make a great point. He needs to probably fight more like that and less like he's been fighting recently to have some success against Canelo. But can he do it? Like you said, does he have the legs to do it? And does he have the mindset to do it too? Because he likes to take chances sometimes. He likes to get in a good scrap, you know. And when I titled this video, "Is this a cash out fight?" I didn't mean it like Crawford's just going in there like he's just gonna go in there and collect the check. That's not what I'm saying. Like this is like the only fight he seems that he wants right now. He doesn't want any other fights.
Yeah, but this is where I kind of disagree. Like, Blood makes some good points, but I don't know if Canelo is the same guy. Like, I thought this was a mismatch last year or the year before, but I don't think this is the same Canelo that ran through Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, all those guys. Like, people talk about the size, but with Bivol, but Callum Smith and all those other guys were just as big. And even then, I still thought Canelo did okay. Like, against a natural was a light heavyweight. I just don't think this is the same Canelo. Like if it was the same Canelo, I don't think guys like Belanga, Charlo, Munguia, all those guys go the distance. I know people say he dropped them or hurt these guys, but we've seen Munguia. I think he's very limited and was there to get stopped. And John Ryder, who got knocked out by Munguia the fight after. Maybe you could argue some of these guys may have been damaged as well, but I honestly think Canelo has slipped. And since the Bivol fight and right around the John Ryder fight, I think he's actually, slowed down or kind of just peaked. Yeah, I don't think he's getting any better. I know Crawford is a bit older, but I think Crawford acclimating and having one fight is probably the smart and right decision to do. I don't think he needs to hurt him. I just think he needs to be able to outbox him and use his speed and just win rounds. Like because we've seen Canelo have trouble with guys like Trout, Lara. Maybe Mayweather's exception because Mayweather's so good defensively. But did any of those guys really actually hurt him? None of those guys did
But here's
actually
the
hurt him.
thing. Here's the thing, Hamed. When you look at a guy like Lara and you look at a guy like Trout, those guys to me, and this is not an insult, this is just what I see. They're more risk adverse than Crawford is. They fight a more defensive fight than Crawford does. Crawford is not like doesn't have that same mental approach to the fight that they do. He's going to try and get his. At some point in this fight, he's going to try and get his respect.
You'll have
And
to mix it up. I
he's
I, I
going to mix it
agree. Yeah,
up.
I
And,
agree.
and and
That's why he has to mix it
one
up.
last point before I hate to cut you off. I agree with you with Canelo. Like a lot of times, I was telling people like Canelo's not going to knock this guy out. I was telling people bet the decision prop, and I'm not going to necessarily say Canelo is carrying guys, but he's at a point in his career where he's just going to do enough just to win. Like if I think, in my opinion, Canelo tends to coast in fights. I don't think he's really going for the kill. Like it's almost like he's just. I don't want to be dismissive to these opponents, but I think he's just playing with these guys at this point. You know what I'm saying?
But Beeb,
I think he was just
he in one of
I
those fights you can maybe say that with John Ryder, but he tried knocking Charlo out. I know Charlo was very defensive and negative, but
yeah
the Balanga fight. Look, this is my point. Balanga, Callum Smith, even Callum Smith, that was a while back, but a lot of these guys were there to get knocked out. If you understand what I'm saying,
yeah
they stationary targets. These guys, some of them are plodders, or essentially are not really that fast or defensively that technical. With Crawford, I think if he does what he did with Postol and in some of the other fights and mixes it up, I do think he's got the style. The big question is the size, obviously, because if Crawford can keep his work rate up and do what he wants to do for 12 rounds, and Canelo's able to time him, I do think Canelo has got underrated timing, and Canelo just starts walking him down. Yeah, then I think he's bitten off more than he could chew. But I just don't think this is the same Canelo that knocked out Caleb Plant, because he tried knocking Munguia out. And I don't think he could. He tried knocking Belanga out. It seemed like he couldn't. And the Belanga fight was the worry to me. That's when I thought, Canelo, I think, has hit a wall. I just can't see him getting any better. That's my opinion on that.
all right all right
Well, he
so
hasn't had a knockout since 2021, Canelo Alvarez.
yeah
But these are some big guys that he fought, man. And styles make fights. I mean, he fought Bivol, Golovkin, John Ryder, Charlo. Charlo's a little smaller guy coming from a smaller weight class, but he's a pretty big small guy who was coming up into that weight class. And he didn't really do anything. He didn't give Canelo no chance. He basically ran that whole fight. He didn't open up to give Canelo any counters or anything like that. Munguia, he probably could have pressed the gas a little bit more on him. He did knock Berlanga down. Probably could have pressed the gas a little bit more. But I think like I have to agree with you, Beeb. I don't think he's like really going all out to get these
no
stoppages
he's
anymore on
coasting
Canelo.
he's coasting
Yeah,
I hate saying this. I think he carried Golovkin in the third fight. I don't think he wanted to knock Golovkin out in the third fight, and I think he actually carried
He
Munguia
got
to.
gassed out. He got gassed out against Golovkin.
Okay, I
Watch that.
respectfully disagree with that one. I think he carried Golovkin, and I don't think he wanted to knock him out. I don't think he
I
wanted.
watched
I
that
don't think
fight.
he wanted the old vet to go out that way.
Nah,
And I
he
think
was tired. He was tired. I think you're right on one of the fights. Sorry to cut you off. I think it was maybe Ryder or Munguia. I don't think it was Munguia. It may have been Ryder, because towards
he
the end
hurt
of that fight,
Munguia in the 12th round, and he basically stopped and backed up. Like I think it looked like he could have stopped Munguia in the
I
final
think
round.
Ryder. I think it was Ryder. Ryder was down 2 times. He was like his nose is broken. I think he had a bit of mercy on Ryder. I would probably concede that fight. But these other fights, I know these guys are bigger, but to me, these guys are getting hit more. And I don't know, is Canelo's power maybe not the same, or is he not the same fighter? Like I don't think Crawford will. Like some people are saying, when he hits Crawford, he's gonna knock him out. If that doesn't happen and Crawford's still there for 12 rounds. I don't know. I don't think that'd be a good sign for Canelo, if I'm
Well,
being
what
honest.
happens if Crawford can at least buzz or get Canelo's respect? What happens?
He's gonna have to obviously change his style. If he can't hurt him, he's gonna have to box and do what he did with Victor Postol, and try and use his feet a bit more. If
Yeah,
he
but
look,
see,
if he
you're banking on that Victor Postel Crawford showing
no,
up,
I'm not
and I don't
banking.
know if that's going to be the case. That's my whole thing. I
I'm
don't
not
think
banking.
that's going to be the case.
I think he needs to watch some of Canelo's fights with guys like Lara, Trout, even the Mayweather fight, and try and see if he can mix it up. That's what I reckon. If he be more aggressive, he could walk into big shots and get knocked out.
Tony P from the UK, the teacher. I know you're
Big
off
up.
today. There's no school today, Martin Luther King's Day. Shout out to Martin Luther King.
No,
May he
no,
rest in
no. We
peace.
got school in the UK. We don't celebrate
You don't
MLK Day.
celebrate Martin Luther King Day?
Nah, he's
Oh,
not
I
that
don't
big
like
an
that,
icon in
man.
the UK,
I don't like that
unfortunately.
one, Tony.
nah, they don't
Obviously,
celebrate
for
that in the UK.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You spent some time in the UK, blood. That's right. You know.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, interesting. I've just joined the conversation, gents, and I love hearing you guys' opinions on things. You
Yeah.
know me. Had to chime in. I don't think Canelo is carrying anybody, and that's from the mindset of a champ of an ex-fighter. So, as a fighter of myself, I just look at the way he carries himself, the mentality that he has. I don't think he's carrying anybody.
Tony, you never showed anyone any mercy in your lifetime, like when you were like smacking someone up and like you never just said, "Hey, man, I got to pull back a little bit because I'm going to hurt this guy. It's
I'll
too
tell you
easy."
why. I'll tell you why. If you start thinking about carrying someone, you run the risk of getting conned out of a decision, yeah? Or B, worst scenario still, you get knocked out yourself. Yeah?
Okay.
I like to think about things the same way Lloyd Hannigan thinks. Yeah? The great Lloyd Hannigan used to say, you don't get paid for overtime in this game. And therefore, I don't think Canelo literally carries anybody. But what I will say is, I don't think he's carrying all that armory that people are saying he's got anymore. I literally don't think he's hurting people anymore.
Okay.
As you said, Munguia getting starched by Surace. Well, why didn't Canelo do it? John Ryder getting starched out. Why didn't Canelo do it? I just don't think he's carrying that kind of weight anymore. When is the last time, legitimately, you can say Canelo walked in and he starched an opponent?
All right. Well,
That's Tony. That's why I don't think he wants to fight David Benavidez. He's not the same fighter or as good as he was, I think. And I agree with you with the.
in your opinion, Tony, and in your opinion, Hamid, is the only way Canelo can win this fight by knockout? Then he can't get a decision.
Yeah, unless they rob Crawford. Yeah, that's what I reckon.
So you're favoring Crawford here, Tony. Who are you favoring in this fight?
I think at this stage of his career, I think Crawford slightly over Canelo. I think it's a very close matchup.
I think it's
this
50-50
is very
as well.
similar to, and I'll put it in the chat, Hagler against Sugar
Ray
Ray
Leonard. Yeah, that's a good
I
one.
really do.
Okay.
I think the younger, the fighter coming up just has a little bit of something that the bigger guy doesn't in terms of speed and work rate. And I just think it could come down to very fine margins. Also, I think this is like a Batavia versus Bivol. I think one of them is, work rate, keeps going. The other one, a little bit more flash, Bivol,
Tony,
working
Crawford's
hand.
older though. You made a mistake. Crawford's actually 37, I think. But I
He'll
think
be
I agree with
38
you.
in September, though. He'll be
Yeah, no.
38
But
when the fight comes up.
Canelo's older in boxing years because Canelo's been a pro since he was 15. I think the age is a bit misconcepted because Crawford, Canelo's been a pro since 2005. I think that's like 20,
He's got
20 years.
like a 20-year career.
I think the age really on paper, not on paper, in terms of in the ring, I think is reversed. Canelo's more of a 37 or 38-year-old fighter. And I think the way he's fighting is probably kind of a perception of that as well.
I'm going Canelo by decision here, based off of how both guys have been fighting as of late. I don't think you're going to see that Crawford who's going to be risk adverse. I don't think you're going to see that Crawford who's going to be moving it excessively. I think you're going to see a guy who's going to try and get his respect, hold his feet, and I think Canelo is going to go to the body a lot here. I think Canelo is going to probably step the game up in this one because this is a fight where he'll be highly motivated for, where some of these other ones maybe psychologically going into him. He didn't.
Yeah, but let's talk about that motivation. If that motivation really is for Crawford, should not that motivation have similarly been apparent when he fought Dimitri Bivol? Because I can't think of a fighter that you will face for legacy purposes more appropriate to secure your legacy than Dimitri Bivol. And then A, you lost to him, and B, you didn't rematch him.
Yeah.
So if you really are going for legacy, let's be honest. Terence Crawford does nothing for the legacy of Canelo Alvarez. Absolutely zero.
I don't agree with that. I think he does do something for his legacy because he is still a two-time undisputed champion. He's going to be remembered as a legendary fighter. He doesn't do as much for Canelo as Canelo does for him. I would agree with that, but to say nothing, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, I agree with Blood, especially if Crawford has another fight, 60 or 68.
Bro,
Like
if you check the early odds for this fight, this is like a pick 'em.
This is my question though.
Pick 'em.
12 months ago there was a really heated debate in I think it was the Boxing Voice in the back server, and I think it was only two people out of 20 of these Americans were the only people saying that is a mismatch and Canelo's a heavy favorite. But the guy told me back then, this was after, I think, after Canelo beat, I believe it was Munguia probably. Maybe Munguia or Charlo, one of the fights. And he was saying the odds are really close.
Yeah, they're razor close.
He kept saying, don't compare it to Charlo because the bookmakers know what they're doing. My mind has kind of changed. Look, I still think Canelo's a slight favorite. Maybe you could say 60-40 on paper. But the longer they wait, I think Crawford is his fight to lose, especially if they fight next September or whatever, later in September. Because that'll give Crawford more time to grow into the division. The thing is, will they give Crawford the decision if it's a close fight? That's my only contention if it does go the distance. Because Canelo, I think, has had a couple of favors in his career where I thought he lost, like at least the first Triple G fight and some of those other scorecards as well.
Okay. Okay. I'm going with Canelo here. I would not mind if Bud won this fight. I think this would be if Bud were to win this fight. Oh my God! Because I love upsets. I love upsets. I like both guys. I probably like Bud a little more. I mean, I just kind of like his style. Like as in terms of style go, I like Bud probably more. But if I'm using my head here, I'm gonna have to pick Canelo here by decision, man. I'm gonna have to pick Canelo by decision. Like I
As
said,
far as I look at this fight, yeah, what we got here is this is a fight of two fighters who are clearly generational fighters. And what we're in a period of what we're looking at the landscape of boxing, and there aren't really that many what we could truly say are generational fighters that in any generation of boxing they would be up at the top of the pecking order. So it's not often that you see two of them who are world champions, multiple world champions, fighting one another. I mean, as you know, Joe, I was at Beterbiev versus Bivol, their first fight in Saudi. But let's be honest, they ain't fought nobody. They
I
literally
disagree with that. I disagree
they
with that.
needed each other to validate each other. They really did.
let's
They
let's
needed each
rephrase
other.
that,
And
Tony.
let's be honest, both of
Let's
them have campaigned at only one weight.
correct, but let's
Yeah?
rephrase that. When you
But
say
they beat everyone, did they, at the
they
division?
never fought anyone, maybe we can say they've never fought anyone on the level of each of themselves. That's
That's what
probably a
I'm
better way to
saying. They needed each other to validate themselves.
Yeah,
yeah.
but that was the win before that fight. That was like a 50-50 pickup
Yeah,
fight.
that
Like
was that was
you,
a huge vin. I
Yeah, but
picked
that,
Boston
let's be
to
honest.
win.
Where has Vostik been?
Yeah.
I'm talking about. I'm
This is
talking
like
about that time.
I
That's
tell you. Let,
hindsight.
let me let me break this one down. Look at Tyson Fury's record and tell me, does the wins against Wilder now look any good?
But you could do that with everyone, did it? We're talking about at the time he beat.
At the
You know,
time, Wilder was a dangerous fighter. He was the favorite in both the
yeah,
both.
yeah. He was no
But
less
those
So
than
wins
the.
have
I don't
not
like
aged
doing the
well.
game. I don't like doing the revisionist history game. I don't think that's fair. But I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
same
the
with the
wins did not age well. The wins did not age well. But
They didn't.
at the
but it's the
time,
same with
there
the
were a lot of
Klitschko
people
win.
picking Wilder to win that fight. And I'm not going to be dismissive of Wilder. I do. You can criticize him all you want. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he was one of the best of in his time. Like he was part of the big three: Fury, Joshua, and himself.
Wilder.
Before Usyk came along. So
Yeah, I
it
agree
is
with
what
that.
it is.
Yeah, but this is what I was trying to say when he beat Vladimir Klitschko. After that fight, they all start saying Klitschko was past his prime. He was,
Yeah,
all 30.
yeah.
That this is what I'm trying to say. Going into that
I don't play
Klitschko
that
fight,
revisionist
how
history game.
how how many people even picked Fury to beat Klitschko? I'm not comparing the Klitschko and Wilder wins, but what I'm trying to say, hindsight, and you have to judge some fights or most of the fights before they take place. And Klitschko was a huge favorite. He had like basically nearly every advantage going into that fight. Hadn't lost, I think, in 10 years or something.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm saying with Batibiev had a win over Gvozdik. They beat everyone else. Like the division thing, I think is a bit different. When you are light heavyweight, the next jump up is like a 25-pound jump. So those guys,
Yeah, but
you
let's
can't.
let's be honest. Let's be honest. Gvozdyk apart, who on that resume is just
Canelo, Bivol beat Canelo, and I don't think Bivol is that big of a. People talk about the size. I don't think Bivol, even Bivol said himself, he could make super middleweight. Was he really bigger than guys like Callum Smith, Kovalev? Both of those guys, Canelo beat. Like so, that's what I'm trying to say. Both of them, Bivol and Batuvia, beat everyone they had fought. Did they beat anyone who was on their level? Look, you could look at what Ward did. Ward was meant to fight Batubiev and he retired. That would have been the best available opponent, I think, for Batubiev. So is a bit hard to judge him on that. Like that was one thing. I think Batubiev and Kovalev they couldn't come to agreement, so we missed out on that fight. And then you had Stevenson, who really didn't fight anyone for like I think about 5 or 6 years until the Vosdick fight. So that's why I think some people were saying that about the resumes before the fight, but there was a lot of moving parts and things that politically that didn't align with it. Otherwise, I think both of those guys would have had better wins and better resumes than they had at the time. But regarding this fight, I don't know if it's on the same level. You would still have to say Canelo's a big favorite on paper because of the size and the fact that Crawford's only had one fight at 54. That was like a more of a 50-50 fight, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. This will end up being a 50-50 fight. I think when the odds come out closer to, as the fight gets, I think the odds will tighten. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Canelo here. I love the arguments for Crawford. It makes the fight more intriguing, more interesting. I like the back and forth. I like the disagreements of opinion. I think it makes the fight even better. It makes it bigger. It's great that some people that there are a good amount of people are giving Crawford a shot here. So I'm not going to be
Beef,
disappointed.
I gotta ask you something though. I gotta go, but do you reckon the next fight will have an impact or change your mind? Like Crawford's meant to fight, I think Derevchenko. Canelo might fight William Skull. Say if Canelo barely scraps by his fight and Crawford looks a lot better,
So
will that have any?
you're hearing that Crawford is going to have an interim fight because I wasn't aware of that.
No, no, they both are. They both are. Crawford's gonna fight, I think, Derevchenko possibly, but that fight is meant to be in September. They're not fighting in May. They were meant to, but I think Turkey
Yeah,
wants some.
they're fighting in September. So what you're saying is both of them are going to have
Yeah, yeah,
interim fights in
definitely.
May.
Yeah, they're
Okay, because
both
I
gonna.
wasn't aware. I was aware. I was suspecting Canelo would fight in May. I wasn't 100% sure that Crawford would.
No, no, the Crawford and Canelo will both have one interim fight. That's what I'm trying to say. At the moment, I still think Canelo's a slight favorite, but as time goes by the time they fight, I think you could argue it'll be close to a 50-55 because of the fact I think Canelo's he hasn't looked great, I would say, in last couple of years, and Crawford kind of will have acclimated to the weight in a way. But look, before I go, I will say one thing: if Crawford has a fight with a guy like Derevchenko or someone in the next fight, and is even closer or tougher than the Madrimov fight, then maybe what you're saying is more accurate. Maybe Canelo will be an even bigger favorite than maybe we are saying. Because at the moment, I was more or less basing it off the style, and by the time they fight, a lot of things can change in that time, man. But it's good talking to you guys, man. All
All
right, I'll
right.
catch you.
Yeah.
take care, Hamid.
Yeah. So if I'm curious though, so if is Bud gonna have an interim fight at 160, or is that interim fight gonna be at 168? We've seen Derevchenko fight at 68. We've seen him fight at 160. I would suspect that maybe it would be at 168 if he is gonna fight Derevchenko. I haven't heard of that. I haven't even.
I tell you what, I don't think if, as they're saying, Bud is relinquishing any kind of rehydration clause, then I think he tells Derevchenko, come in wherever you want,
Yeah. Well,
because it
that's
makes
another.
no sense
That's a
trying
great
to.
thing. That's a great point. I want to talk about the rehydration clause,
Mm,
as if he could ask for a rehydration clause. Like, would Canelo give it to him? Like, yeah, there's no shot in hell that he could sit there and say, "Hey, this fight only happens with a rehydration clause." Canelo gonna
mm,
tell him, "Go fuck yourself," right?
yeah, yeah,
There's no way. Like, he's not in the position to ask for a rehydration clause. So
yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh yeah, he's not asking for a rehydration clause because he can't." This ain't
Yeah,
Tank Davis. He can't ask for a rehydration clause. And I'm
yeah.
gonna be. Oh, speaking of rehydration clauses, tell me your opinion on this because I'll give you my take. the whole rehydration clause with Chris Eubank Jr., right? This is what I'm suspecting, and I'm not saying I know this for sure, but Chris Eubank Jr. was so adamant about getting this 55-45, right? So then
Mhm.
Ben says, okay, if you want the 55%, I'll give that to you, but I got to have something in return. Let's throw the rehydration clause in there. That's what I'm guessing. Sort of like when Leonard fought Hagler and Leonard wanted the 12 rounds instead of the 15, wanted the bigger ring instead of the smaller ring. Then Hagler ended up getting more money as a result of it. Didn't end up working out for him. Do you think that this is a similar situation to that where, okay, you want 55, you want more money, you got to kick something back to me here now? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, being the smaller man, I always say this about Tank and his clauses. You have to work out what you can get to work in your benefit at every negotiation. And all I put this down to is if I have a better negotiator than you do, I'm going to get everything I possibly can. If I'm going to get the bigger ring, the rehydration, then yeah, I'll skim on the money because ultimately I'll make it up on the back end of the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Just like
Oh,
Devin Haney. Remember
yeah.
Devin Haney was bragging about, oh, I got this 500,000 per pound and I'm getting an extra 1.5 million. Then
Mm.
after he loses, all he did was complain about him being over the weight. You were bragging about you got paid for as a result of it. So like you can't go back on it now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, you think it's better to get the concession as opposed to giving up the money.
Yeah.
Because you pay him.
Always take the concession.
Okay.
If I'm managing a fighter, I'm going to say, look, take the concession because ultimately you want to win the fight. So that's where the fight takes place. The fight isn't over money. Yeah, I get it. If you're on even keel and everything's even, then you can start arguing about money. But let's be honest, take your concession and win that battle. Because if you walk in with an advantage of weight and ring size and, you know, number of rounds and minutes per round, whatever it is, that's going to be the thing that will ultimately favor you when the bell rings.
Who are you picking in that fight? And not only who are you picking, who do you want to win in that fight? I have a soft spot in my heart for Chris Eubank Jr. I know a lot of people criticize him because of the resume, because he's hard to deal with at the negotiating table. I, I get a kick out of him. That day that he goes to the press conference, wears that KFC jacket, gets up and says, I'm just a dude with a KFC jacket trying to like the guy, I just think he's a very charismatic, very entertaining guy. I get a
Yeah,
kick out of him. I like him. I like the fact that he goes like plays poker, does all he's like a cool hipster to me. I like the guy. And I think he's an entertaining fighter. I think he's very dynamic.
yeah,
Obviously doesn't have the greatest resume, but I still like the guy.
yeah. Look, I'm old enough to remember explicitly the rivalry between their fathers. I was at their fights,
I
um,
saw those fights. Those are great fights.
and I'll be honest with you. I remember Nigel Benn boxing in small hall amateur shows with me. Yeah. So I remember seeing the Dark Destroyer
That's amazing. That's amazing,
absolutely
Tony.
destroy young kids and thinking to myself, oh my God, I don't know who that guy is fighting for the RAF, or no, it wasn't the RAF, it was the Army at the time, and thinking to myself, he's an absolute beast. And then when I had the opportunity to turn professional myself, I was like, well, when I look at the landscape, there are people fighting who I would hate to have to face. And Nigel Benn was one of those guys. And I know he was a middleweight, I was a lightweight. But there were guys who were killers.
Tony, how
And
many
it
pro
was
fights did you have? I never knew you went pro. How many pro
I
fights?
never did. I
Oh,
never
okay.
did. That
Oh,
was my
okay.
point. My point was
Oh, you didn't go pro, but you were amateur. Okay,
it was
misunderstood.
a stage where I was like, you know what? If I was to go pro, there are too many killers out there. And you traverse the landscape and you go, nah. Much though I could make some money, I would want to give it my all. And I just know there are guys out there much too hungry, much too savvy, much too strong. And he was one of them guys that I always looked at and went, he's a guy. He's a guy that, you know, I can admire
He was a
because
bridge
he's
too far. He was a bridge too far at the time,
bridge too
right?
far.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So I admired both guys. And then I remember seeing Chris Eubanks in his formative years as a professional fighting in a small hall, York Hall, which is like the mecca of boxing in London. And thinking to myself, this guy is phenomenal. And then charting their two careers and then seeing and going, when these two guys meet, it was a phenomenal event in British boxing history. And I'll be honest with you, my favoritism at the time was towards Eubank. I just liked his style and his whole demeanor because there was a whole persona around Chris Eubanks at the time. You know, the press conference going up to it, you know, his whole act, his bravado, machismo, you
What
know,
about the
it was
wardrobe? The
something,
wardrobe was great too, right? The
it
clothes.
was amazing.
I love
It
that. I
was
love the
amazing.
Eubanks. I love the Eubanks.
Yeah.
I like
So,
I like the Bens too, but I like the Eubanks a little better, man. I'm
yeah,
biased
yeah.
towards the Eubanks, man.
And so it's just worked out that, you know, I kind of favor Eubank, the family, over Bender family. And you know, it's really weird because I'm very good friend with Nigel Benn's first wife. Very good friends. I'm not nothing, you know,
No, I know
not
what
that
you're saying.
close.
I'm not gonna
But
do that to you. I'm not. You know, I don't do that to people, man.
no,
I
but
ain't like
yeah,
these
you know,
other.
look,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, it's one of them situations. I'm looking forward to this fight with great anticipation. I do favor Eubank. I think he has enough in the locker, size wise, speed wise, power wise, to discourage the hungry Conor Ben early in the fight, and then later on as he turns up the heat to take out the youngster.
Yeah, and this is a case where I talked about before, where usually a lot of times in these big fights, the smaller guy moving up has more of the skill, like the skill advantage. I don't see it here. I
No,
don't see it here.
no,
That's where the problem lies. I think Eubank's style plays right into, not Eubank, Ben's style plays right into Eubank's hands here.
yeah.
I I think Ben is going to get brutally knocked out in this fight. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be mean. That's not
Yeah,
what I want to happen. I just think he may get brutally knocked out here. And
yeah. I mean, he has literally.
I ain't putting
He,
any negativity, any bad karma in here, man. But
no, you know what he's gonna do. It's not like he's got multiple styles. He's not like a Jerome Boots Ennis who can fight in a number of ways. You know, he has one style of attack, and if you can't win with that, you're not gonna win. We've seen, you know, him get pushed to the wire and almost lose. So
Corey, where do you want to go? We've been all over the place here. You want to go back to Canelo Crawford? What's your thoughts on this? Is Crawford like leaps and bounds better than Canelo in terms of skill? Is that supposed skill gap going to be that much greater that it's just going to dwarf Canelo's size advantage here? What are your thoughts, man?
Man, first off, man, what's up, man? Everybody
Well,
had
I want to congratulate you, man, on the house, on your child, on the great work you've been doing with the landscaping. You know, I always got to give people their props when they come on before we even get into the boxing. You know, you guys are my friends. I root for everybody that's part of the Beeb clique. So go ahead, man.
yeah, man. Salute to everybody that's been on the panel today, man. Man, it's been been some good guys on the panel. I've been listening. I work overnight, so I woke up listening to this. I don't know how I stumbled across this. This just came up on the timeline. But listen, man. It's a lot going on in boxing, and I think Turkey is really really doing wonders for this sport, man. That we love so much, and I mean, I heard y'all talking about the Canelo versus Crawford. I think that's an awesome fight, awesome showdown. There is a weight difference. There are weight divisions for a reason, and you have to respect those as such. Jumping up all the way to 168 pounds when you're naturally I think Crawford can still make 140. And he's already said he'll make 140 to fight Tank Davis. So that's been on record. So I'm saying right now, I'm thinking Crawford's a little bit too small, and he's biting off a little bit more than he can chew. But you know, we said similar things when he was gonna fight, Earl Spence Jr. You know what I'm saying? He's biting off a little bit more than he can chew, but it was really the other way around. I think skills do pay the bills. And at the end of the day, we seen Canelo Alvarez in there with an elite fighter and one of the greatest of all times in Floyd Mayweather and get dissected. You know what I'm saying? And he just got broken down, by a smaller guy. And I think that, that can do wonders. That can do wonders, in the sport of boxing, showing that the little man can win. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm not ruling Crawford out of this fight to lose this fight, but I'm telling you guys right now, I think that this can be a really, really marquee fight. And I think this can go even bigger than just boxing, just from the weight class standpoint. I think that, there are weight classes for a reason, but you train and you train and you try to get better each camp. And I think that that's what, Crawford is doing. I think he's gotten better in each camp. I don't think he's gotten stagnant. I don't think he has a whole lot of yes men around him. And I think that that's going to benefit him in this fight. He does rigorous training. Some say to the likes of a Gennady Golovkin, some say to the likes of an Artur Beterbiev, and some say to the likes of a Alexander Usyk, which is one of his favorite fighters. You got to understand the elite of the elite boxers, know about each other, and they want to get better as well. And I think that for him to want to get better like that, I think that that's going to do nothing but benefit him in this fight, running those huge mountains in Colorado, you know what I'm saying, doing those rigorous training camps, I think, to be honest with you, I think that Canelo Alvarez, I'm not going to say he's at the end of the road, but at the same time, I mean, I haven't seen Canelo getting a whole lot better. If anything, I've seen him decrease in certain areas. I mean, look how Jaime Munguia got stopped, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, he went the full fucking distance. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I did lose some money on that fight. I did think Munguia was gonna get stopped. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. But I mean, why didn't you press the gas? Why didn't you,
I told you to
go
do
in
the
there?
decision
Why
prop
didn't
in
you
that fight.
go
You
in
didn't
there?
listen. You didn't listen to the Beeb. I told you to do the decision propping in that Munguia Canelo fight. You think I told you,
I feel like there was an opening. I feel like Canelo should have took it. I feel like that was a fight that could show the Mexican fans I still got it. I still got it. I can take him out. It's no problem with me. And then, Munguia's very next fight, I believe, he gets stopped by, Joe Schmo. You know what I'm saying? Not Joe
that's
Habib,
not going to
but
happen.
Joe
That's like
Schmo.
a
Not
once in a
Joe
lifetime
Habib,
thing,
but
bro.
Joe
That's a
Schmo.
once in a lifetime thing. Man. That's not happening in the rematch. I'm picking Munguia by stoppage in the rematch, man.
So let's think about this, yeah? Remember when Sugar Ray Leonard was calling out Hagler? What he did was, as a smaller man, he saw Hagler fight John Mugabe. And it was at that point he realized there is a chink in the armor I can take advantage of. I am absolutely certain Terence Crawford has seen the same chink in Canelo Alvarez. And he goes and he's looking at it and this is what a good fighter does. This is what the elite of the elite are capable of doing. They see a chink in the armor and they go, I can see how I can win this. Yeah? That's where I feel like right now,
Mikey
Terence
Garcia
is
said
looking
that
at
when he
this
was
guy
going
and
to fight
thinking,
Spence too. He saw something,
Two
but
totally different fighters. Two totally different fighters. You
yeah.
cannot compare apples to oranges. You cannot compare apples to oranges. You know, you cannot compare apples to oranges. Mikey Garcia is completely different than Canelo Alvarez, and Earl Spence, as we seen, is completely different than Terence Crawford.
we can say that now. We can say that now. But you know, it was a very similar narrative going in. But yeah,
Let, 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 let's
I just
appreciate
think
that.
that I think that Crawford hasn't been that stick and mover since the Postal fight. and that Crawford has not shown up in a long time. And that's the Crawford that's going to need to be there against Canelo, in my opinion, in order to get a decision. That's just how I see it. And you could say that Canelo has slipped, but we don't know if Crawford has slipped either, because you could argue that, like, I did believe the Madrimov fight was going to be a competitive fight. So I
That
do
was a tough fight, though, B. That was
and
a tough
yeah,
fight,
and I
man.
do think Crawford did fight well in that fight, as well as Madrimov. So I don't think that was necessarily Crawford maybe slipping significantly, but you can make an argument both guys have probably slipped a bit, right? Both
Yeah.
guys have
Well,
probably
we're gonna.
slipped a bit, right? And the question is, who slipped more? That's the thing.
I think we're gonna see. I think in that Magnemar fight, I think when he fights Virgil Ortiz, I think we're gonna see how good he really is.
Yes, and I'm
Straight
picking
up, I
Madrimov
think
to
we're
beat
gonna see how
Virgil
good he
Ortiz.
really is. How can you gauge a fighter that's only 10-0 and
Yeah,
has fought guys that we don't really know?
and I think Madrimov is going to have a great fight against Virgil Ortiz. I thought Virgil Ortiz lost to Bohachuk. I thought Bohachuk won that fight. I thought he edged it out. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, man. Is that your mic, Corey? Let me see. Mute yourself. Yeah, that's your mic.
Yeah, I was hearing that. I'm thinking, is that me? So I turned my mic off, and then
Oh, he jumped
suddenly
back up. Yeah, him.
the sound was okay. But hey, listen, Beeb, this is going to be a great fight. It's one for
Yeah.
the ages. You know me. I'm going to be there in Vegas. Are you going to be there?
Are you going?
Of course.
I don't know. I may have to. Jump in the Beeb jet and head down there, man.
Come on. Let's
If you're
link
going to
up.
be there, I don't know, man. I may
You
have
know,
to come out of the.
you
I
know,
may
I
have to
met
come out of the cave.
You
I may
know, I
have to
met
come out of the
Maestro
cave.
when I was there for the Spence versus Crawford, right? We were both there.
Oh,
We
you were
got
there with
to,
Maestro?
yeah, we met. We
Yeah, man.
met right outside the arena. So it would be great to meet you there. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely turning up because you know me. I love to be at the big fights. So you know,
Yeah. So Corey, who do you like in this one? Do you like Canelo in this one? Or you're picking Crawford? I can't really hear him. All right.
Okay, for this fight, man. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right, all right, all right. Yeah, you know it ain't a show unless I'm having technical difficulties, y'all. You know
We
that
always
right now.
we give you grace,
So,
man. You're one of the old school. You're old school. Got the
you
phone.
know,
We got the
so
phone lines back on
yeah. But
Sunday
if you
now. You
put
can
the
call in on Sunday now. We got the phone lines back for the Sunday show.
okay, all right, man. It's been a while, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the Crawford fight and the Canelo fight, right now, just outside looking in, just picking, off of what I've seen of both fighters so far, I would definitely, and not even definitely. This is not even a definite pick, but right now, seeing what I've seen from both fighters, they said you're only as good as your last fight. They said you're only as good as your last fight. So seeing what I've seen, I'm thinking that Terence Crawford is I think he's good enough right now to still be able to get it done. On that top. The only thing that I'm worrying about is the rehydration clause, and I know Canelo at 168 works. What his still, I still feel like he's a naturally 150
Oh, he's froze up on us. Froze up on us right at the best part, but that's okay. All right.
weight on. And
All right.
I think that he can you still hear me?
Yeah, you went out there for a little bit. Yeah, we went out. He's got no connection. All right, we got to get him out of there. All right. We kind of know where he's going. He has a tendency. All right, let me see if he's back. You back? Let me see if we got you. Go ahead. I got you. Can you hear me? All right. Having some internet problems.
yeah, he's having some
We'll
problems.
catch up in a minute. We'll catch him up in another time. That's okay. Yeah, he likes the David and Goliath thing. He likes the smaller guys because that's why he loved Usyk. He liked Usyk. Bro, man, I was so wrong in that rematch, man.
Yeah.
I
Listen, I
was.
got one question before I let you go.
Yep.
You're a Furyite. You're a Furyite. What do you take of his retirement? Do you think he's coming back? Because it's a
Here's
big
the
question.
problem. Here's the problem this time, right? The circumstances are much different. Coming off of 2 losses, arguably 3. I thought he lost to Ngannou, believe it or not. So, because the circumstances are so different, he may not come back. He may not come back. And I'm gonna be honest, it's just my opinion. I was not happy about that 281 pounds in that rematch. I did not think he looked great. I don't think he looked in shape. Um, I don't. I did not see the benefit coming in at 262. He looked great. You already had a significant weight advantage as it is. To me, that kind of said to me like I don't give an F, and I'm just gonna come in at whatever I want, and I'm gonna eat whatever I want, do whatever I want. And I thought he looked a little bit ponderous in the rematch. I thought he looked a little bit lethargic. And everyone points to the fact that, oh yeah, he did better in the rematch. Why? Because he didn't get hurt like he did in the 9th round in the first fight, bro. At no point in time was he ever up in the fight in the rematch.
Mm,
So I had it 8-4. I
mm.
had him losing the first fight by a point. Thought it was razor close.
Yeah,
This time, I don't even think there was an argument you could make. And
yeah.
then you want to sit back, and these people love to argue about, oh well, the scorecards were too wide. All right, so what do? You flip one round and he loses 7-5. You still lose the fight. Like I
Mm,
can't stand constant arguing over scorecards at the end of a fight, man. It's just like
yeah,
it's so ridiculous, bro. So
yeah.
ridiculous.
I mean,
But it was
the thing to do is, look, if somebody gets the decision widely different to everybody else, then you can say, like, that person needs to be investigated. But other than that, 1 or 2 rounds, please, people, it's not worth it. Really isn't.
because think about it. If you only have to flip one round to make it 7-5, so
Yeah,
you're gonna feel better losing 7-5 or 8. Like who gives a shit?
yeah.
Yeah. All
Big,
right,
great to
all right,
see you,
T man.
buddy.
Nice to see you from you, man. Nice to hear from you.
Tony,
Take care,
salute.
Corey.
Salute,
Tell-
man. All right, Corey. Gonna give you the last word here, man.
Ah,
Before we
yeah.
head out.
Sorry about that with the technical difficulties, y'all. I had to sign in with my laptop, man. The phone just, snoozed out on me. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's some awesome matchups coming up, man. Turkey Al-Sheet is really setting the standard. He's really, putting his money where his mouth is, and I think he's doing nothing but awesome things for the sport. And that's why we're able to talk about these fights that could possibly happen that we would have never seen if it wasn't for him. We would have never seen any of these fights if it wasn't for Turkey Al-Sheet. And I mean, I just got to salute him, man. He's been doing a hell of a job, and he's not trying to play favorites, which I think he does sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, he
he
definitely
does
was playing
sometimes.
favorites. He definitely wanted Fury to beat Usyk.
Yeah,
He
I'm
was
like, what
openly
the
he
fuck?
was openly rooting for Fury, man.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, you're on one-on-one calls talking about, yeah, get it done and all this. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, as a compliment.
okay.
And
But,
I'll tell you another thing I don't like about Turkey Al-Sheikh, and I don't want to be overly critical because it's definitely way more positive than negative. I hate when he has these interim fights leading up to the big fight because anything can happen in an interim fight. Guy can get hurt, guy can lose. That Fury Usyk fight almost didn't happen because I thought Fury lost against Ngannou. He was
yeah,
lucky to get the decision against.
yeah,
And you killed the Wilder Joshua fight because you had to have 2 interim fights in between. You had Joshua fighting Wallen and you had Wilder fighting Parker, and he ends up losing to Parker. Now that fight's gone. Just do the fight. Enough with the interim fights. Just do the fight. Because so now he's talking about having Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia have interim fights before he puts them two together in a rematch. It's like, bro, just do the fight, man. I know they're both coming off layoffs.
yeah. And that's what I was thinking, Beebs. I'm
Oh, you froze again.
so glad you hit on that, man. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking when I was looking at how they were gonna have it, how they were gonna, have an interim fight in between. Ryan Garcia is not for sure to get through those interim fights unscathed. You know what I'm saying? He's been known to be chinny. That's number one. Number two, he's been known to, blow up in camps. I mean, when's the last time we seen Ryan Garcia fight? You know what I'm saying? And not only that, who's going to train Ryan Garcia? Are we going to get the same Ryan Garcia that fought Devin Haney? I think everything was working, for him in that Devin Haney fight because it was so much on the line. Will he get up for an interim fight like that? I know the money's going to be on the line. I know everything's going to be on the line and all of that. But, we got the same stick when it came to Joshua versus Wilder. We got the build up. We got, these guys both saying each other's names and, the post-fight press conference, but all it took is one of those twin towers to fall and to keep falling. And then the other one fell. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, man. You got to understand, man, that, boxing is a sport. Boxing, definitely is a business, but nothing's promised in boxing. So when you make these interim fights, do you think that Pitbull Cruz ain't going to want to, upset the apple cart? Or if they throwing Teofimo Lopez in there, you think he don't want to upset the apple cart?
It's not a given on the other side either with Devin Haney going against Jose Ramirez. That's a tough style.
I think he can beat him. Styles make fights, and I think he can outbox him. I think that's more favorable than a Pitbull Cruz. Pitbull Cruz is coming to take your head off. And Ryan Garcia is chinny.
Okay.
For that fight, for Ryan Garcia to get clipped or to get knocked down or to get hurt, that is not out of the realm of possibility for me. That is not out of the realm of possibility.
You're more confident about Devin Haney getting through Ramirez than you do Ryan against Pitbull.
Yeah, because we've seen Jose Ramirez get schooled before. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. We've seen him get schooled. We've seen him get beat. We've seen this happen before. Gotcha. So I just feel like, moving forward, this is an interim fight, you know what I'm saying? But listen, man, you're dealing with Ryan Garcia, he's never been a world champion. He doesn't know how it feels to be a world champion, to hold those titles, okay? To do everything it takes to be a world champion, okay? And there's still question marks with Ryan Garcia that have not been answered in my book yet. I don't know about your book, Beebs. You let things rise sometimes, so I don't.
I'll take that. I'll take that one. That's all right.
You let things rise sometimes. So like I said, man. Ryan Garcia. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for him to get clipped by Pitbull Cruz. Even Gervonta Tank Davis said, Pitbull Cruz definitely has power. Definitely has power. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen that. And look at the Venezuela fight. He was doing good until he wasn't. You know what I'm saying? He can definitely be outboxed. But like Deontay Wilder said, one of his quotes that he always says, you know what I'm saying? And he stood by this all the way until the end until it didn't matter anymore. You got 36 minutes to be perfect. All it takes is one. And I feel like with Pitbull Cruz, man, he has that type of power, man, in those smaller weight divisions where all it takes is one. And we've seen Ryan Garcia be chinny before. Let's not say that, Luke Campbell dropped him.
That's true.
Luke Campbell dropped him. Luke Campbell dropped him and hurt him. Okay?
Not a huge puncher.
He's not a huge, and then listen, he's chinny. We've seen Gervonta Tank Davis punish him where he didn't want to get up anymore. And let's just be honest, man. At the end of the day, skills pay the bills. And I think that, I just want to see the Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't like the interim. I don't like the
The interim fight could ruin millions. You know what I mean? It could ruin millions. People are really, still, gung-ho about this rematch. You got, Devin Haney, diehard fans that's saying Ryan Garcia is a cheat. He should never be able to fight again. This is wrong, what he's doing. And then you got Ryan Garcia fans out here saying that, Devin Haney's, a bitch in so many ways. And, he should just man up. And, it wasn't the PEDs and it wasn't this and it wasn't that. And how are you going to sue a fighter? And how are you going to take a fighter to court and all of that? And I heard one of the obligations was he had to drop the, court proceedings.
Yeah, he dropped the lawsuit. Yeah, I heard that too.
So we've seen we're coming to a new realm of boxing, Beebs, where a lot of things are changing and a lot of things are changing fast. This is not to just, we make a fight, it takes, 4 or 5 months to build up and all of that. I mean, Turkey is trying to get these fights done where, I mean, we start seeing fights in, February and March. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's trying to get the ball rolling now. I don't know what's going on with Turkey Al-Shid where he's trying to see all of his fights. I don't know if he's just trying to bring a lot of, people in to, Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. I know that's one of his goals. But, then I heard he had health issues. I'm not sure what's going on, but he is definitely trying to get the ball rolling on a lot of these fights, man.
Gotcha.
And
One last one before I head out of here, man. Joseph Parker versus Daniel Dubois. How do you like that one?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm glad you asked me about that one, Beeves. I marked that down on my calendar, man. Definitely I cannot wait to see the props for this fight. Listen, man, Joseph Parker is definitely dialed in. I'm not trying to take anything away from Joseph Parker. Let me just start off by saying Joseph Parker showed me in that Wilder fight, that he still has it. But what did Wilder show us? Wilder showed us in the last 2 fights that, he's pretty much toasted. I hate to count Wilder out because he has that right hand, but at the same time, man, I mean, he has so much, and that's another thing. I hate to bring Wilder up, but you kind of got to bring Wilder up when you're talking about Joseph Parker because that was one of Joseph Parker's best performances of late. You know what I'm saying? And, Wilder has so many outside of ring issues, you know what I'm saying? From the allegations of, him, sleeping with his brother's wife, with his brother's girlfriend and stuff like that. And, all of these different allegations, him and
Domestic violence now too. Domestic violence is up.
Yeah,
there too.
all the domestic violence and stuff
I
like that.
Bring it up, but just it's out there.
Him and his wife splitting up, where he said he had a soulmate, which he thought he had a soulmate. I mean, I've seen these fighters, fall, for the wildest women. I'm not saying that, Wilder's wife is wild as shit or whatever like that, but I'm just saying I've seen it happen, but I had to throw that out there because we don't know the state of mind that Wilder was in the Parker fight. I'm not making any excuses. He lost fair and square. But Parker was still, I feel like I've seen better Parker before. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to say when I seen him fight Wilder. And, I just feel like Parker is a good fighter, but I feel like when he's going up against a guy like a wrecking ball, like Daniel Dubois, okay? First of all, Joseph Parker does not have boxing ability like Alexander Usyk. Stop making that narrative. Stop. People keep bringing that up. Well, Usyk could do it. He's a smaller man. Joseph Parker and Usyk don't even fight the same. They don't even fight the same. You know what I'm saying?
You've been talking about Usyk for about 7 years now, man. You love it.
And I stand on it, and he's still undefeated. I lie your boy Tyson Fury. You know what I mean? I should have made the wildest pie bet you ever had in your life for that fight. Twice, Beebs. You went for the wrong guy twice. Okay? Standing on what you believed in, but it wasn't right. It wasn't right. The partying caught up to him. The lack of focus caught up to him. The money could have caught up to him. Alexander Usyk is straight-faced. But to answer your question, Usyk beat Daniel Dubois, okay? So he can be beat. He can be beat. You know what I'm saying? He can definitely be beat. We've seen, Daniel Dubois lose before. So I'm going to be honest right now. All signs point to Daniel Dubois punishing the shit out of Joseph Parker.
Wow. Punishing, not just win, but punish the shit out of.
I'm talking about icy.
Is there a line that says punish the shit out of on DraftKings?
Yo, yeah. KO. And I think, and I'm gonna be honest, man. Once Joseph Parker feels the young brute talent that Daniel Dubois has, where he hasn't been in he's been in wars. I'm not gonna say he hasn't been in wars, but he hasn't been in Derek Chisora wars. You know what I'm saying? He's been in wars, but there's levels to these wars. You know what I mean? I think he's still in his prime. You know what I'm saying? He's still a younger guy. Okay, he's still a younger guy with a lot to prove. And I like the new Daniel Dubois look. I like how he's being more, rambunctious. I like how he's being more, he's talking more shit. He's laughing at the press conference with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker's looking back at him like, I don't see what's funny. I'm coming here to win. I'm coming here to take your head off. You know what I'm saying? And Daniel Dubois, carelessly looks back at him and say, I'm gonna do a demolition job on you. and meant it. You know what I'm saying? And I really think that Daniel Dubois is going to get Joseph Parker out of there. Joseph Parker will not see the 12th and final bell.
Wow. So you're going to be betting the stoppage?
I'm going to be betting for the stoppage.
Okay.
Big time. And I'll show receipts.
Oh, you always do, man. I mean, people.
And I'll show receipts.
I defend you on the Ringside Reporter podcast. Everyone tries to diminish your betting prowess, and I tell everybody. He shows me the receipts, man.
I think I won close to a little bit over 1,000 on the Better Be Bivol fight. Now that did go a little. You know what I mean? I was like, I was jumping for joy at the decision because I was like, it was a close one. You know what I mean? But I bet, all of the bets, man. Come on, man. I
had Better Be edging it out, though. I did think Better Be edged it out. I thought it was close, but I had him winning 7-5 on my card.
Yeah, I think Better Beef edged it out, but in the rematch, he's gonna have to do a lot of things different. He's gonna have to really bite down, and he's gonna have to show that that Bivol cannot withstand that power. You know what I mean? I think he needs to throw more power punches.
A little more body work. A
little bit more body work. Slow Bivol down. You know what I mean? Which Better Beef does have good body work. From what I've heard, in all indications point, Better Beef is just a hard puncher. Whether it's a jab, whether it's an uppercut, whether it's a hook. I mean, he's just a really, really tough fighter and a tough fighter to deal with in that square circle. And I can't wait for the rematch, man. I cannot wait for the rematch. It is marked down on my calendar. February 22nd. Let me look at that undercard. I haven't even heard you talk about that undercard right? One time on this show today. That undercard right there is legendary. You got Shakur Stevenson on the undercard. I mean, you got, it's gonna be a pretty good undercard, man. One that I'm looking forward to. I'm gonna be tuned in the whole entire day for that fight because I'm on East Coast time, same as Beebs. And the fucking card starts at like 11 a.m. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the card starts at 11 a.m. and I'm gonna be tuned in from 11 a.m. all the way through. There's no way. I'm not going to the store. I'm not. I'm having everything that I need from 11 a.m. or whenever the card starts on up because the whole card is like that. You know what I mean? For you guys out there that want to start promoting, some of those Wilder cards, like Wilder versus Hellenius, where the undercard wasn't, the greatest. And it was like all of these just different, cards where I'm like, what are y'all seeing in this card? This card is absolute bullshit.
I hate to say this, man, but them PBC cards, the one with David Benavidez is okay, but a lot of them aren't the greatest, man. And the problem is they're gonna charge you with these pay-per-view prices.
Who's on the undercard of that Benavidez card?
They was talking about the fuck was it? Gary Russell Jr.'s fight is what's his name? Let me pull it up because I was reading about it the other day, and let me just pull the card up because a couple of names stood out to me. I know Gary Russell Jr.'s on there. Let me pull it up, see if I can find it.
Yeah, pull it up, man. Like I said, man, me and Beebs, listen, man, we know we're true boxing fans. We both have our, definitely have our, our thoughts on certain fighters, which, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Neither one of us, look, when you had all of these, riders for Wilder, Beebs was a rider for Fury, you know what I'm saying? And I was steady pushing use it, from the day I started my channel. So, I just feel like, we've seen who the cream always rises to the top. And, like I said, man, I want to see the best fight the best. Who is there left for Usyk to fight? I mean, he's fought and beaten everybody. And I mean, if he hasn't beaten you once, he's beaten you twice. You know what I'm saying? So that's even more wild. You know what I mean? A lot of these fighters are like, damn, can I, we want to see that rematch. Do you really want to see a rematch with Fury? Do you really want to see a rematch or a trilogy with, Daniel Dubois or Anthony Joshua, a rematch? I mean, he's beaten these fighters 1 to 2 times convincingly. And I mean, with the Daniel Dubois fight, why are you asking for a rematch when you got stopped?
Yeah, you got to stop. Yeah, so Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton are fighting on that card in a rematch. And
that's a good fight. That's a 50-50 pick'em fight. But I've seen a little slippage from Fulton, man. I don't know. I haven't seen a whole lot, but Fulton's been active. And he, I hope that Inoue fight has, I hope that has helped him out a lot. But, I've seen some of his interviews, and I just don't even think he acts the same anymore after that Inoue fight. I mean, he got blasted out of there, man. He got blasted. There's no other way around that, man.
Yeah, they're saying Isaac Cruz is on that undercard too, but I don't know if he's going to stay on that undercard if they're talking about him fighting Ryan Garcia. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to jeopardize that turkey money. Would you?
No. Then I wouldn't jeopardize that money. Just like I was telling people that they had Madrimov supposedly fighting Bohachuk on the Fury undercard, and then they said he was going to go right into the fight with Virgil Ortiz. I said, nah, he ain't. He's not going to be fighting Bohachuk, man. He's not going to jeopardize that Virgil Ortiz fight because everyone's like, oh, their fights are too scheduled close together. I said, nah, he's pulling out of that Bohachuk fight.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, me and Beebs can say what they want, and a lot of these, fans can say what they want. But at the end of the day, boxing is a business, and you need to remember that, you guys, when you're talking about some of these fights that you want to see. Skills pay the bills, but checks pay the bills too. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, Turkey is coming with a lot of money, man. He's writing a lot of big checks that, some of these fighters haven't seen these type of checks before. And that's just a fact.
Yeah. Isaac Cruz is going to be on that undercard. He's fighting Angel Fierro. Jesus Ramos is fighting Jason Rosario. That's a pretty decent fight. So it's
fighters. I mean, but the reason why I like the February 22nd better be
that card's a monster.
But the reason why I like that, Beebs, is you got a good amount of undefeated fighters on that fight that are going up against other undefeated fighters. You know what I'm saying? Which, I think is awesome for the sport. You know what I mean? I think it's a really good thing for the sport because somebody's always got to go. And when I start talking like that, boxing is moving in a good direction. So somebody's always got to go.
You like the fact that people aren't trying to protect their O on this card, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because I just feel like, and the money's there. Turkey's putting out enough money where these guys are signing up. These guys are really doing this. You know what I mean?
Even the Shakur Stevenson Floyd Schofield fight is a decent fight. That's kind of intriguing a little bit too, right? Because you got Floyd Schofield, young up and coming guy, looking to try to make his bones. Obviously, you're going to favor Shakur in that fight, but it's still an interesting fight.
It is an interesting fight, Beebs. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, and I'll say it again, it sounds cliche, but skills pay the bills. I mean, I think that Shakur Stevenson is, I think he can stop Schofield, to be honest. We haven't seen a stoppage in Shakur Stevenson in a long time. Or a really, I feel like a stoppage where we're like, damn, he put in work. You know what I mean? I haven't seen him until he fought the Marine. What's his name?
Terrell Herring.
Herring. which he's dealing with some wild shit outside of the ring.
Yeah, that story is kind of messed up.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell? So I just feel like, Schofield is a little bit in over his head. Some people say his dad is writing checks that his ass can't cash. And it's put up or shut up. He didn't show up for the press conference, which Shakur Stevenson, raised some eyebrows about that.
He didn't show up for the press conference. He wasn't there.
I mean, well, it was the whole panel. The whole damn near everybody was there from the fight, from the card.
Wow.
Floyd Schofield was one of the only ones that was not there.
That's surprising.
That was not there. And then he went back on, I made a video about it. He went back on Twitter and he said, I found out who the rat in the camp was in Blase. And he said something about it was his passport. He had passport issues. So I don't know how in the hell, when Turkey's putting up all this fucking money, do you have passport issues?
You gotta get that shit squared away, man.
To be honest with you, Floyd Schofield, and I respect him as a fighter, but he might be the least accomplished fighter on this card. And I'm not trying to, throw bones. I don't have a favorite. I'm not, riding, Shakur, just because he's Shakur Stevenson or whatever like that. No. Floyd Schofield is relatively unknown. The only way this fight is getting done is because Floyd Schofield, him and his father, mainly his father, have been going on these live streams talking wild, talking reckless as shit. You know what I mean?
You ain't with that. You don't like that.
Listen, man, you gotta let your son do the fighting. And I respect what he's saying to a degree because we've seen this happen before and it worked for Danny Garcia. A la Danny Garcia. Angel Garcia talked his motherfucking son into some world titles. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. He was talking, and Daniel backed it up. A la Amir Khan. Before Amir Khan got stopped numerous times after that. You know what I mean? Danny Garcia came into that fight as an underdog. His dad was talking wild. It worked for him.
Yeah.
Can this work for Floyd Schofield? To be determined.
It's a good question.
I'm going to lean towards no.
No, I'm gonna pick Shakur in this fight.
I haven't seen Floyd Schofield dig deep where he needed to get this win, where he had to get a win, where he had that premier fight leading up into this fight, where he fought, a former world champion or a current world champion, where we were like, damn, Floyd Schofield is on the map. What fight do you know that put Floyd Schofield on the map, Beebs? Can you name one?
Can't do it.
Anybody in the chat without going to BoxRec, can you name one?
Can't do it. I hear you, man. I hear you.
I just, at the end of the day, man, some of these fighters, and their fathers, which they are their trainers and they're their fathers, and they've been with them through all the amateur fights, through all of the training camps. And they really think that their son is top-notch shit until they get in the ring with top dog shit. You know what I'm saying? When you're in there with the numero uno. You know what I mean? Which some people say that Shakur Stevenson is the number one fighter at 135 pounds. A lot of fans say that Tank is. That's the fight we should have got, but that fight wouldn't even be on the fucking undercard. That's right. Let's let us, call a spade a spade. That, I don't care how much money Turkey Al-She has. I don't even think he could make a fight where Gervonta Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson was on the undercard.
I got you.
Straight up, you know what I mean? And, Tank is pretty much saying that he doesn't, he, in so many ways, he doesn't, he's not worrying about Turkey Al-She and, what they got going on over there, stuff like that. And then him and Terence got into it because, Gervonta Davis wasn't invited to, I guess, the Ring Magazine, gala or whatever. But, Gervonta Tank Davis has never fought under Turkey's, banner. So
Never.
why would he get invited?
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And PBC has a strong a strong hold on Javante Tank Davis right now. Where if Javante Tank Davis were to leave PBC, would be mind blowing. Would be mind blowing for
I
PBC.
love I love David, but David don't draw like Tank does.
Who?
I love David Benavidez, but he doesn't draw like doesn't draw like Tank Davis does. It's not even close.
Yeah, I lied. The reason why David Benavidez was on Tank Davis's undercard
Correct.
to build him up, to
Correct.
have him on that next level.
I agree.
But I mean, right now, man, I think that Javante Tank Davis he's got to find a way to get more active, man. I think some of this inactivity could possibly bite him, man. You know, I love what I've seen out of Javante Tank Davis the last couple years. Inside of the ring, of course, but I think he's matured some outside of the ring as well, for sure. But the inactivity, man, the inactivity. The inactivity. I think keeping a fighter like him, which could be dangerous. Javante Tank Davis can be dangerous on the inside of the ring just as much as he can be dangerous on the outside of the ring. So you gotta be mindful of some of these fighters, man. You gotta keep them busy, to keep them out of trouble, to keep them out of the way, keep them out of their own. Some fighters say, I'm my own. I'm standing in my way. Nobody else is standing in my way but me.
Right.
I got to get me, and that's what they mean by that. Getting their self together first. But
All right, man.
all right, y'all. It
Have a
was
good
an
one, man.
awesome show. I'm glad to end it with Beebs. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad to see the tail end of the live stream. And
Outstanding.
when you doing another one like this, man? I mean, was this a spur of the moment or?
For the moment, but I still do the Sundays. I jump on a lot with Maestro on Saturdays.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I have today off, so I figured I'd bang out a few videos. But I'm gonna stop
Yeah,
pushing
and
it.
I got to
Like
go to work in an hour, and I'm just pushing through.
yeah, I'm gonna start doing more of these because boxing's starting to pick up, and so you'll be seeing me doing a little bit more of these.
I mean, well, you do know how to use this, right?
Yeah,
You do know how to use this, right?
right.
Maybe shoot a text. Hey, man, I'm going live, man.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, damn, I had to find out through the, just,
okay. I'm hoping the notifications work, but if they don't, I'll start shooting you a text.
the notifications definitely don't work. You know what I mean? I haven't been getting notifications of you going live, and I don't know if people at home been
You
getting
know I go
notifications.
live on Sundays, man. You already know that.
Oh, yeah. Ringside Reporter, you guys, at 6 p.m. Eastern time, man. You
You know
can
that.
catch Beeb and Eric,
Thank you.
and Robbie.
Robert kicks in. And the phone lines are back.
And the phone lines are back, y'all. This is an awesome live stream to build the show back up, man. To get them back to that pinnacle place where people could call in and you could have some of the most wildest callers in the world, and Eric just bang on them. You know what I'm saying? With no ill will, no type of, I'm looking out for you because I know you. No, what the hell are you talking about? We'll talk to you next time.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you, man.
All
Be
right,
good.
y'all have a good night. Good day. I'm still on nighttime. My bad, y'all. It's one of those things, man. I don't get off till super late at night, man. You guys have a great day. Enjoy y'all day. Be productive. And Beebs, until next time. Peace.